Welcome, everyone. My name is Sid Melcher. I'm Executive Director of the World Affairs Council of Western Massachusetts, and I'm delighted to have you all joining us. I'm glad to see a few new faces. I just wanted to say a few remarks before we start our program. First of all, I'd like to thank our program sponsors, Glen Meadow, Sir Speedy, and Wilbraham and Munson Academy, and we are continually grateful to NAI Plotkin, which, in addition to providing us with this great event space, also provides us with office space. So we're very grateful to them. A few things. We are at the end of our program year, so you should watch for more programming to be scheduled in the next couple of months for the fall. We do have a couple of programs that are virtual, that are presented by our sister council, the World Affairs Council of Orange County. And there are some flyers over there. One is on May 24th on Beijing's Global Media Offensive, and the other is on June 22nd on the globalization myth. The globalization myth. Both of those are virtual, and they will take place at noon Pacific Standard Time, so watch out for that. That's also included in our e-newsletter. If you are a member, yay. It is getting to be towards the end of our fiscal year, so if you still need to renew, please think about doing that. If you are not a member, I hope you'll grab one of these flyers and consider joining us, in addition to getting yourself membership benefits like reduced admission to events like this. You'll also be supporting other programs we do in the community, including the State Department's International Visitor Leadership Program and school partnerships that help us enrich the classroom experience of students in our area. Our speaker today is Mr. Isidre Sala Queralt. Did I get that?
Perfect.
Good. He's the head. We actually met in November when I was in Washington for the World Affairs Councils of America National Conference, and he approached me and said, so I'd like to come to Springfield and speak, and I said, yes, you may. And I'm very pleased that we were able to pull that together. He is the Director General, he is the head of the Delegation of the Government of Catalonia in the US and Canada. Before that, he was Director General of Global Affairs in 2019 at the Secretariat for Foreign Affairs at the European Union of Government of Catalonia, where he previously was Director General for Multilateral and European Affairs. From these posts, he worked to foster cooperation between the Government of Catalonia and the multilateral organizations in order to maximize Catalonia's potential contribution to the main global challenges. From 2014 to 2017, he promoted Catalonia's policy in international finance, institutions, and other international organizations with an economic mandate. He will be speaking us today about Massachusetts and Catalonia, strengthening a partnership. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Isidre Sala.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this kind introduction, and thank you all for being here today. It's my pleasure, together with my colleague Julian Lopez from the Catalan delegation here in the US, to come here. It's great because, you know, I started this job a little bit before the pandemic, and then, you know, everything that no one told me happened, and then we get into this kind of virtual world. So it's nice to be back and to the real world and be able to travel, to visit places, and to basically understand what's going on in the US. It's such a big country, so many states and so many interesting things to happen, because our job is this, to understand what's going on here and to try to make connections with Catalonia and try to promote partnerships. We have a long story of partnerships. You may not know this, but one of the first consulates the US made right after the independence, before the 1800s, was in Barcelona. And this is a decision that was taken by you Americans, because at the time they thought that it was very interesting to have, of course, first embassies in the European capitals, but then consulates in other cities. And we have more than 250 years history of a consulate of the US in Barcelona, and that's something that not many cities in the world can say. So that means that there is a long story of cooperation, and it's something that we like to reinforce and enlarge. So I'm going to make a short presentation today, because the most important, I think, that we can have a dialogue. So I invite you to make questions at the end, suggestions, say your opinion. You may have traveled to Catalonia for different reasons, or if you're not, I invite you to do it. But the most important thing is that we have this conversation, and it's very interesting because, you know, as we said, we met last November in Washington, D.C., and of course, this is our place, and we're interested in foreign affairs. We go to these events, but of course, we also like to go to the places, real places where there is people who is interested genuinely in foreign affairs to have these kinds of conversations. So we will start making just a few figures, basic indicators about Catalonia. You know, is this small place here in red in this map, centrally located in the south of Europe, in the Mediterranean. And you know, it's in American perspective, is very small. We are only 7.7 million people. We have less people than New York City. But in European terms, it's not that bad, although, because if you realize there is a few big countries, also big in European terms. Again, France is not that big if you compare with the US, but it's big in Europe. But you have Spain, France, Italy, Germany, but the rest are not such a big countries. So Catalonia has got a similar size in number of inhabitants like countries like Switzerland, Austria, Finland, and Denmark, and more than many others. All the Baltics, all these former Yugoslavian countries like Slovenia, Croatia, they have less people than us. We have about the same as Portugal or Greece, for example. We have more than Ireland. We have more than Slovak Republic. We have more than many of these countries in terms of inhabitants. And we made that 16% of the Spanish population. But in GDP, we are also not that small, in European terms again, similar to Finland, Denmark, or Ireland. And we make more than 20% of the Spanish GDP. And if we compare Catalonia with the European average, that would be 100, we are 112. So we are a rich place in European terms, richer than probably more of the other southern regions in Europe or the eastern. We have an economy that has been gone through services the last few decades. So agriculture is now very residual. All of our grandparents they work in agriculture in the past, but no one now very little people still work in agriculture. But we used to be one of the places that the Industrial Revolution started in continental Europe after England, but also the contribution of the industry to the economy has been decreasing because the services have been incrementing a lot. And we have the 5th most populated metropolitan area in Europe. So out of the 7.7 million people, 4.5 are in Barcelona area, or close to 5. So that means that makes that one of the most dynamic and active places in Europe, in terms of specific areas, not only about countries. You may have heard about Barcelona, and it's basically one of the flagships of Catalonia is Barcelona City, which is a city that has been very successful, attracting visitors, attracting people to come to live for different reasons. It's one of the cultural hubs of the south of Europe, the biggest port in the Mediterranean, one of the busiest airports. So it's quite a city competing. Besides, we have London and Paris, which are much bigger than the rest, but we can compete with the rest, let's say with Rome, with Berlin, and these other cities. Well, maybe we can go to the next one. But besides all these figures that provides you an idea of what Catalonia could be in terms of importance nowadays, I want to emphasize that Catalonia, it's not just a region, it's a nation. We have this kind of, I think, nice combination of a national and universal vocation, because we have our specific culture. We have our own language that comes from the Latin. It's a sister language with Italian, with Portuguese, with French, with Spanish, with all these kind of languages, but it's our own language. And it's one of the language, it's a very dynamic language, although a lot of people, sometimes they find Americans, they come to Catalonia, I didn't know that you were not speaking Spanish. Well, we do speak Spanish, we are bilingual, but we have our own language, which is Catalan, which is similar to Spanish, but it's a completely different language. Many Spanish say, we don't understand what you say. Okay, it's a different language. But if you pay a little bit of attention, you will learn. It's like me, I never studied Italian. I go to Italy, I pay and I can understand more than 50% for sure, or even more. But it's a language that it used to be spoken during the dictatorship only at family level, because it was not allowed to teach in schools, it was not allowed to use in public. Now, luckily, this has changed. And thanks to internet, we found an opportunity to make it much more possible. Because as you can understand, to print a book for a market of 10 million people is not the same than to print a book for a market of 500 million, which is the case of Spanish. But internet has helped that Catalan language has been more available and with more resources, because you can save them, of course, the printing cost. And it's actually the 10th most translating language in the world, and it's already taught in 166 universities all over. Among them, there are close to 20 in the US. So in Boston, you can learn Catalan, in New York, in Washington, D.C., in LA, in Chicago, in Houston, in all the major US cities, you can learn Catalan universities. So, and besides the language, we've been very active, much more than if you compare with the average of the size of the population, in the areas like scenic arts, literature, architecture, paintings, music, gastronomy. We are quite powerful. You may have heard about Gaudí, for example, which was the biggest architect of the Art Nouveau, beginning of the 20th century. But it's not only him. Because he built this kind of church, Sagrada Familia. You may have heard if you have visited Barcelona. Actually, 2 weeks ago, President Obama came to Barcelona to visit Sagrada Familia. But also, I put here a picture of something that's called the Palau de la Música, and like the Palace of Music, which is the finest concert hall done in the world with this style of modernist or Art Nouveau, as is considered. So there is a lot of writers, a lot of painters, Miró, Dalí, for example, all these guys that were Catalan. Picasso was not Catalan, but he started his career in Barcelona. He was born in the south of Spain. With 18 years old, he arrived to Barcelona, and he developed his first stage of his career in Barcelona until something about middle age. He went to Paris because it was the place to go at that time for painters, no? But everything he learned and everything when he started was also in Catalonia, no? And well, we have musicians like Pau Casals. We have a lot of artists that have been that make us a very strong and very unique culture. And at the same time, we are happy to absorb all the influences around the world that arrive, because it has been always a territory that has been a lot of people coming and going. So we've been trying to welcome and try to get advantage of these kind of interchanges. We've been trading from our existence, no? We were absorbing these influences, and we were having also developing this kind of sense of tolerance towards an attitude of curiosity towards the rest of peoples in the world, and that has made our character. So at the same time, we are proud of our roots, proud of our nation. We don't want to lose it, because in a globalized world, as you know, I just heard a few days ago that every 14 days, one language disappears. So I think this is horrible. This is horrible because, you know, with this globalization, everybody wants to learn English, everybody wants to learn French, these kind of big languages. And then what happened with the rest? People start to forget the language of their grandparents. They just don't, you know, this simply disappear. And I think this is a loss for the humanity, no? So we want to our culture, our language to survive for, it's more than 1,000 years old, so why not 1,000 years more, no? And at the same time, cosmopolitan. So here's just some basic also information to make you a little bit understand that why also we are in this kind of privileged situation, I would guess. Our economy is quite active and quite competitive. We are been last few years the most competitive area in Europe attracting foreign direct investment. And mostly of these companies are coming from America. Some of them, they come from Japan, some of them, they come also from other places of Europe. But with this globalized world, some American companies they say, okay, I need to have a headquarters in Europe. I have to choose a place. Could be UK, could be France, could be Germany, could be Italy. Many of them, they decide to come to Barcelona for a number of reasons that we have that make attractive for them. So that's something which we are working, and we are happy with the results, and we will continue doing our best to promote. No, we're becoming one of the main hubs of technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship. For sure, the first in Southern Europe, but also competing with other areas in Europe. And this is not easy because, of course, we have these competitors, and everybody is also working for the best of their own territories. And we have to do a good job, otherwise people wouldn't come. No? We've been working a lot in talent, attracting talent. Now, if we compare with Massachusetts, it's a little bit difficult because you have the best universities of the world here. And of course, this is very hard to compete. But we have, among the ranking best 100 universities in the world, we have a few from Catalonia. And every year they are, you know, going up and upper in this ranking. And for example, out of the only business school, 10 best business school in Europe, 2 are in Barcelona. And this is not us; it's Financial Times who made this kind of survey. No, we are becoming also a very important logistic hub. Of course, you know, in the past, all the transit that came from Asia were going to ports in Northern Europe, like Hamburg, like Rotterdam, in France, etc. And now many are absorbed via Barcelona and then distributed to not only Catalonia and Spain, but also southern France, Switzerland, southern Germany, because it's cheaper, because it's quicker to distribute goods in all this stuff. And we have made a lot of investment in railroads, for example, and roads and motorways and all this stuff. And also, we are quite open mind, and we've been business-friendly environment that makes probably that these figures are so good. So maybe next one, Julian. So besides that, a competitive environment, it's also a nice place to live. And also, we have one of the highest life expectations in the world. We are competing with some areas in Italy. We are competing with Japan. And it's one of the places where people get older and healthier, which is good. And we have a fantastic public health system. Some of the things that impress us when we come here into the US is that you have this kind of private system, which if you have money, there's no problem, but a lot of people cannot afford it, and then they are in trouble because they get ill, and there's too costly, simply too costly. So in Catalonia, we have built a fantastic public free health system, and actually, it's coming people from all over the world to get surgeries, to get treatments, we have some of the best hospitals in Europe for sure already, and growing and growing. So it's one of the biggest health hubs in Europe, and also, of course, it's on the benefit of the people. And something also I think it's interesting, and this is also a gift of the nature, we have a fantastic climate. We were saying before, here is fantastic now, but probably if you invite us in January, we will think twice, because we know they have a lot of snow, we have very low temperatures, everything gets complicated to drive or everything. Of course, I'm joking, we will come if you invite us again in a January or a December. But we have a very mild climate, we have very mild winters, we have fantastic summers, and we have such a big climate that it's good to spend a lot of time outside, and everything is easy. So we normally don't have much problems because of related to weather, with the flights, with the roads, with all this stuff. And that makes that there is a very vibrant cultural scene outside. You can go to squares in all towns and cities, and there is, on the weekends, there is festivals, there is people, there is gatherings. It's something that community life is a reality, and this is something that it also attracts people from all over the world. And sometimes when we speak to people, I love the life here. So besides the work, it's good, okay? I love the life, the way you live, and it's something that we are also proud of. So now we are going to play a video that is not only for Massachusetts, but it's for the whole US. But if we hopefully in the future we can make also something about Catalonia, Massachusetts, basically to show that our words is not just words. It's something that it has some basis, no? It has we are talking about a partnership that exists already for some time, centuries, and it has got the potential to grow. So what we are doing is strengthening this existing partnership.
Catalonia and the United States of America, more than 4,000 miles apart, and yet so close. The Government of Catalonia has had trade and investment offices in Washington, D.C., New York, Miami, and Silicon Valley for the past 30 years, and the Delegation of the Government of Catalonia to the United States was established in 2008. But the relations between Catalonia and the United States go way, way back. In 1769, Catalan Gaspar de Potola founded the city of San Diego and later became the first governor of what is now California. Then in 1797, President John Adams named William Willis first consul of the United States in Barcelona. In fact, Barcelona was just the third European city to have a U.S. consulate. Since then, the links have grown, and now the U.S. and Catalonia are solid trade partners. And the U.S. was the biggest foreign investor in Catalonia between 2015 and 2019. And when it comes to tourism, the numbers are massive. Every year, Catalonia welcomes over 1.5 million American tourists, and nearly 2 million people fly from Barcelona Airport to over a dozen U.S. destinations. Now we are looking to build up our relationship because we already have a lot in common. Did you know that Catalonia has already signed agreements with 2 different state governments? Or that you can learn the Catalan language at 19 different universities in the U.S.? Could you ever have guessed that both Boston and San Francisco are sister cities with Barcelona? There's even a Barcelona harbor in upstate New York. And Catalans have made important contributions to the United States in fields like the arts and sciences. In fact, the Catalan population in the United States has more than doubled in the past decade. And we believe that great things lie ahead if we work together to strengthen our partnership.
So that was the idea, to provide you some of information that we've been gathering to make people understand that already this is a already existing relationship, and there's a lot of things in common, a lot of things that we can promote. So let's talk now about Massachusetts. It's here your place, and the thing is that we realized some time ago, because first of all, we have this kind of historical connection with California, as it was said by this guy. Actually, the first, out of the first 4 governors of California, 3 were Catalan at the time that were, 1700s, no? But and we have this kind of special relationship because still you see a lot of Catalan names in streets there in San Francisco, in San Diego, in many other towns. And people who went there, stayed there, they have Catalan surnames. Some of them, they don't even know now, not anymore. Say, you have a Catalan surname? Really? Yeah, I didn't know that because maybe it was 200 years ago, an ancestor that came, and they have just forgot all this story, no? But we were looking for another place, because at the end, well, California has this historical connection, and of course business connection is very important, but it's so huge. It's 50 or 40 million people, it's very far away. It's even difficult to talk to them because it's 9-hour difference between Catalonia and San Francisco and California. So the moment they wake up, for you is the end of the day. So you have to hurry up if you make a call or something, because it really makes it not so easy, no? So we're looking for, maybe let's look for somewhere in the East Coast that we have things in common and we can try to boost a kind of partnerships. And we realized that Massachusetts, although this is New England, has got there is not this kind of historical links, no? So no Catalan came here in the 1600s to do whatever, so that didn't happen. But we have small states, no? If you compare with the rest of America, this is, but at the same time, a very rich history, and some areas in which we thought that, yeah, this is interesting. You have a very vibrant art and literary scene like us here. So you have here this kind of examples. We already have a lot of trade. Now, for example, that we are preparing this participation, I'm going to explain later in detail to Bio Conference, we realized that there are almost 10 companies, Catalan companies in the pharma sector that already have investments here in Massachusetts because they have partners here, because here is also very strong, this industry, and these companies, they were, having a relationship at the end, saying, well, let's open an office there, or let's open a small factory, because this is well, it's the place to be. If you're in this business, the place to be. You don't go to Florida for this. You go to Massachusetts, no? So there is this kind of growing trade relationships and in this biotech and renewable energy sectors. So we decided some time ago, at the time of Governor Pratik, I think we make here mistakes in 2012. We will have to solve. The Catalan president signed an agreement with Governor Dival Patrick at that time which is this kind of Memorandum of Understanding, to basically to say, okay, we recognize us as partners already, we have a lot in common, our experience so far is interesting, but we have a lot of potentialities, a lot of potential synergies. Let's push this from both sides because we are all both interested in having this kind of partnerships. So this MOU was signed at the time. That was focusing in, in what you are good, and we are also trying to, in that sense, we have a lot to learn from you in this technological industrial innovation. And it was focused in trying to develop stronger partnerships, especially in the industry sectors, in these key productive sectors, no? And it was defining this kind of priority areas, but it was generous enough to be able to be open to other areas in which there is common interest for both sides, no? So the idea was to learn more from each other, understand what's going on here, what's going on there, exchange best practices, transfer knowledge, both directions. If you are good in that, we want to learn more. How do you do this? If we are looking, if we are better than you in another area, so we are happy to tell you how we are doing, what phases we found, and what we can do to transfer this kind of knowledge. And of course, developing projects together. No? And this is probably something we are going to see in the biotech sector, or we have already seen in the biotech sector. So maybe I have to hurry up. We are organizing, and that's the main reason of this trip, although we have tried to come here earlier, but we are organizing by the next month, in 1 month from now, 5 to 8 of June, a delegation of Catalonia that is going to come here, head by the Minister of Health. And this institution, the bioregion of Catalonia, which is an ecosystem of more than 1,300 companies and research centers, that they are working in this healthcare innovation sector. And they are going to have a booth in the bioconference, and we are going to have meetings with other companies, with the ecosystem here, the Mass Bio, the Mass Health, the Massachusetts Life Science Centers, with all these institutions that are here that makes one of the strongest, if not the stronger, cluster of biotech in the world, and try to enhance this kind of conversation, because we are actually one of the strongest in Europe in this sector. And the companies already they are talking to each other. But you know, in a globalized world, it's not that you are competing against the rest of the world, so you need some other hubs to be connected to really be competitive. No? And we are, for example, very strong in clinical trials. We are 5th in the world if you consider the contribution to biomedical knowledge. So it's only after Netherlands, Denmark, the USA as a whole. We didn't find the figures of Massachusetts only, but one very important reason why the US is one of the biggest in the world is because of Massachusetts in this area, and Sweden. So we are going to come here and we are going to have this kind of agenda for our minister and for the delegations that are coming. So if any of you, I'm going to forward you an invitation, because on June 5th evening is going to be a reception that is going to be hosted by our minister at the Boston Seaport District. But the idea is that if you are in the biotech sector, you are welcome to come. So if any of you of WACA is working in this sector, we are very happy to invite you if you can make it on Boston on June the 5th, because it's going to be a very interesting event to learn more about specifics about this sector in Catalonia. And as I said before, the idea is to have this conversation. I could speak for ages, but that's not the plan. No, the plan is that we have a conversation. That was just a sort of introduction. I'm happy to answer your questions or to elaborate more in whatever you may need.
Could you talk to us a little bit about the state of the movement for Catalonian independence? I wonder, you didn't mention anything about that. I'm very interested in that.
Okay.
If there's anything you can share. And also, connected to that, you mentioned the mobility. That's something you're touting in Barcelona. What about unions, and do the syndicates strike periodically as they do in France, and does that paralyze things? I was wondering about that. And then if there's time, would you talk about medical tourism?
Mm-hmm. Okay, yes, no problem. Let me start by the second, which is the easier. Yes, we do have sometimes strikes, and we do have sometimes people complaining for a number of reasons. But luckily, I think, and my colleague Julian know better about this, it's better than France. So, of course, one of the biggest problem after pandemic and the world has been inflation. So we get, the highest inflation of my life, at least, no? So this is creating, people is complaining and people is worried, and sometimes there is a strike. Sometimes, for example, there is also a battle about Uber. So Uber is nowadays not allowed in Barcelona city, for example, because the taxi trade unions, were so powerful that they said, these guys are going to kick off from the business. So they make a lot of lobby, and they manage to convince the mayor to ban Uber. So no longer Uber is available in Barcelona. And some people, Americans, I'm trying to get a car with Uber with my app and it's not working. No, nobody will come. You have to look for the taxis and you forget about Uber here. So I don't know if this is good or this is bad, but this is something that's happening. And yeah, we do sometimes we have this kind of strikes, but I think no more than the European average. And luckily, not as, I wouldn't say violent, but or like in France, and sometimes you saw these images in TV, like people very angry, burning containers or something. Not so far. But we have, and now I'm linking to the first question, we have some of these images you may have seen, for example, in October 2019. At that time, the Supreme Court sentenced to jail the former Catalan politicians who organized this referendum in 2017. And people were very angry, and it was this kind of demonstrations in the street, and it was some kind of critical moments because people were very angry. History behind that is, you know, it's very long. We could spend here a whole day not talking about this. But basically, I was telling you before that Catalonia is a nation. Catalonia is a nation, has all the elements of being a nation. Catalonia was officially born in the year 986, when at that time was a count that became a king. Got independence from the Frankish Empire for a number of reasons, and has been creating this country at the time. During 7 centuries, it was a state. In the Middle Ages term of being a state, of course. So our own currency, our own taxes, our own systems of legislation, everything. It was a monarchy at the time. And in the 16th century, it was a union of crowns of the King of Catalonia and Aragon, which is called that because it was larger than Catalonia, married with the Queen of Castilia, that it was, and became one single crown. But during 2.5 centuries, these two kingdoms, they shared the crown, but they were apart. So each one has got its currency, its institutions, different laws, different kind of different languages, different systems of anything, no? But it was the descendants of this, after these 2 centuries, they died, so without children. And it was what is called the Succession War, which was, some scholars say that it was truly the first European war at the European scale. Because all countries were involved, because as you can imagine at that time, Spain was controlling, from Mexico to Argentina and Chile, was controlling a big size of the American continent, no? So becoming king of Spain was something very interesting. So the Germans wanted to be kings of Spain, the French wanted to be access to the crown of Spain. It was because at the time, as you can imagine, all these royal families, they were interconnected, and there were many pretendants. So end up with a war between two, the one coming from Austria, the one coming from France. And the Catalans decided that we wanted to join the one from Austria because it was the one who granted that things will continue as they were. 2 different states, only united by the crown. But we lost. So in 1714, it's the day that this war started, finished, and the French pretendant became the king of Spain. And because of that, because we fight against him, let's say, Catalans fight against him, say, okay, I'm going to annihilate all your institutions, I'm going to forbid your language, I'm going to, trying to make one single nation. So that was from 1714, so there is decrees and trying to basically to eliminate from the earth the Catalan nation, no? So that has created a resistance, but the sad thing is that 18th century, 19th century, even 20th century, most part of Spanish story has been under authoritarian regimes. Has been monarchies, has been republics, but has been authoritarian, no? So only after Franco died, the big dictator of the 20th century, 40 years, in 1975, in 1978, the Spanish voted a democratic constitution, finally. So at that time, a lot of people in Catalonia said, finally we're going to have a modern state, democratic, is going to accommodate us, is going to make us proud of being part of this system, because my parents couldn't learn Catalan in school. It was forbidden. So they couldn't learn. And you know, if a policeman hear you speaking Catalan in the street, they will shout you or even try to put you in jail. So that was really, really complicated. So after that, in 1978, Catalans were very optimistic, and during 2 decades and a half, they were contributing a lot, much more than the rest of the areas of Spain to the building of this democratic nation, no? As Spain, this democratic country. But in 2003, a president at Catalonia at that time said, okay, this is not working very well, because you know, we've been doing our best, we've been contributing, but you are always cheating us. We are paying more taxes than the rest. You are promising us that you are going to, for example, why the Spanish government is investing 17 times more in the Madrid airport than the Barcelona airport? Why? So it's a capital. Well, it's a capital. Maybe you invest more, but 17 times more? So you want to make this Madrid one very big, and you want to leave this as very small, but you know, you have to help us. Why, for example, at the time in the 80s, it was built, for example, this, it was said that the Catalan delegation in the video was created in 2008, no? But the trade office it's older, it's in the 80s, late 80s. So why at that time Catalonia, government decided to create a trade delegation here in the US? Or an investment attraction office? Why? They exist at the Spanish level 1. But you know, they didn't bring most of the business to Catalonia. They always end up favoring the capital region, which is something like, okay, but that's not, so we also want to have these investments. So we're going to create our own agency, we're going to do our job, because if you don't promote Catalonia, we have to do ourselves. And we started to do this business. And it has been, and since then, everything has changed. So it was some kind of dissatisfaction. Okay, and this president said, okay, let's make a new agreement, let's start again, fresh, and let's make this work. And it was a new agreement, it was the elaboration of what is called the Statute of Autonomy, the new Statute of Autonomy, which is like a regional constitution of Catalonia inside Spain. And this was approved by 88% of the Catalan parliament in 2006, and voted in referendum for over 80% of the Catalan people. So then this document went to Madrid, and the Spanish parliament also approved it. So that means that it's done. So that's the new beginning of this relationship between Catalonia and Spain. But at that time, it was the Socialist Party in Madrid who approved that. So the Conservative Party said, okay, we don't like that for just electoral reasons. We're going to fight against that. And they went to the Constitutional Court, which is some kind of Supreme Court here in the US. And you know, these guys have been doing their best to put all conservative judges at the highest place of the judiciary. And they managed to consider 66% of this document, of this Statute of Autonomy, as unconstitutional, which is not true, because before that, before passing at both of the Catalan and the Spanish, there were already other jurists that said, this is 100% constitutional, no problem, go ahead. And these guys don't say, no, it's not. So why? Well, it's not. So they have rewrite the constitution in some sense, no? So that was created a sense of Catalonia, say, okay, we are not free, so we are not free to decide. So this is, we make an internal exercise, we came to these conclusions, we voted, largely, massively, we voted for it, and then 12 guys in Madrid, they vote and they decide that this is not correct. So that's not nice. So that's why a lot of people, they decided to join the ones who were previously already having this kind of pro-independence mindset, no, or attitude. And this ended up with probably the large, massive, peaceful demonstrations you have seen in the past, in the 2012, 2013, 14, in Catalonia, in the streets of Barcelona. They were all around on TV. At that time, if you remember, it was the Scottish referendum of independence, 2014. So in 2016 was elections in Catalonia, and for the first time it was a majority of seats in the Catalan parliament for independence, and a president who was from a party who was for independence. No? So he said, okay, let's do like the Scots do. So Madrid, they did it, they lost it. So let's do fair play, let's vote for this. You campaign against, I campaign for. Let's see what the people decide. Say, no way. And you saw what happened in 2017, because at the end, the Catalan government had to step down because they have promised to do something. They have relative to that, but they decided to go to this referendum on our own. So without the agreement of the state. But you saw what happened on 2017, 1st of October, and all the troubles that came afterwards. So it's a little bit complicated. Now there is formally a dialogue between the Catalan government and the Spanish government to solve these problems, which is the right thing to do. You have to have a dialogue, you have to solve, because you have to accept that there is people who is not satisfied, an important number of people, and you have to develop this dialogue to find a solution. You cannot just ignore it, because it was what the previous conservative government was doing. They were just ignoring it. But the thing is that by the end of this year is going to be a Spanish election again, and if Conservative Party get to power again, which is a possibility, maybe you hear again in TV images in Barcelona with, I don't know what can happen. I don't know. So it's complicated. Sorry if it's too long. You tell me. I'm just.
No. Anybody else?
Can you speak to your approach to climate change, particularly in light of the drought conditions that have severely impacted Catalonia over the last, really since last year? So what's and you talked about renewable energy as being one of the driving forces economically. What's the position that you're taking in terms of both addressing it, but also addressing it as a global issue?
Absolutely. Yeah, sure. This is right now there is a big important drought in Catalonia, and we are quite concerned. We are in probably one of the weakest point in the planet towards what is the climate change impact, because we're in the Mediterranean region, which has a fantastic weather but has very little rain. And if there is less rain than usual, you start to have problems, because we don't have this kind of green trees everywhere as big, and it's really complicated. So I think there is a common attitude of all the Catalan citizens and Catalan political parties that we have to do something against this, because it's going to get only worse and worse and worse. So current government is absolutely committed in fighting against climate change, in doing whatever we can. And there is a number of institutions. For example, last year, the Catalan president came to New York to the Climate Week in September, and he announced something that I think is very interesting, that the first public company that is going to produce 100% renewable energy, because, private companies, they are producing more and more and making investments in producing solar or wind energy. But it's going too slow. We need to go quicker. We need to hurry up, because otherwise we won't be on time. No, we used to use coal in the past. We have also hydroelectric, because we have the mountains that divides with France. So we have this kind of hydro resources, which is very good, but it's not enough to provide. And we have a lot of sun. So there is an incentive of making solar farms, helping people, private people, to do solar farms, but also the government is going to create. So, for example, all the public buildings, they have a deadline in which they have to work 100% on renewable energies. So they have to make investments. And the thing is that if you have, for example, a roof on a building that is public, you put everywhere solar panels, and if you have more than you need, no problem. You put it into the network. So this is working, and also he announced what is going to be the largest offshore windmill park in the Mediterranean. It's going to be in the north, very close to France actually, in the north of Catalonia. In the west. It's going to be 25 kilometers from the coast, so it's going to be very difficult to see from the beach where are these windmills, in an area that's quite windy, and it's going to be massive, the production of this windmill. So it's going to announce a lot of investments and a lot of policies to go there, because I think we have the lack, I would say, that we don't have people denying the climate change, because it's so obvious that we have to. There is also a plan that has been announced also recently by the Minister of Energy of multiplying by 16 the number of electric stations for cars. Because some people say, I would love to buy an electric car, but when I need to charge my car, I have to queue like 2 hours, because there's a lot of people queuing there. So I don't have the time to spend 2 hours a week just waiting in a charging station. No? Okay, so we're going to do more. Since private sector is going too slow, so public sector is going to make these investments to multiply the next 5 years 16 times. So I think it helps, and probably will convince some other people to buy an electrical car instead of a traditional car. No? So yes, there is a whole number of initiatives in this sense, and hopefully will be on time, because sometimes this is going so quick. For example, one of the things that has been now on the table after this draft has been that 25% of the water that comes with the tubes and everything sometimes is lost because the tubes are not modern enough. So okay, let's invest in this. I don't know how to make canals and this to make this loss much smaller, because if water is such precious, good, no? So if we just don't have updated infrastructure, no, we have to do it, because first of all we have to do this. We have some of the biggest desalination plants in the Mediterranean, producing fresh water from salty water. But we're not really sure if this is the right thing to do, because you need to invest a lot of energies. So I went to the UN Water Conference last March, end of March, to basically announce that what the Catalan government is going to do now is going to invest much more in regenerated water. So that means the water that comes, it's used in the cities. Sometimes it goes to the sea straight. No, we have to make, nowadays we have enough technology and enough knowledge to get this water, treat this water in an appropriate way, and to make it fresh again and safe, and it's much more efficient, much more sustainable, and it makes much more sense than investing a lot of money to produce fresh water from salty water. So there is a lot going on. If you're interested, I'm happy to provide you more connections with the website that explain all this, but I'm not the expert.
Well, thank you very much. We have a little present for you. This is Assignment China by Mike Chinoy, who is one of our recent speakers. I hope you'll enjoy it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for coming. Again, we're sort of going into a bit of a hiatus, and we hope to see you again in the fall. Thank you. Bye-bye.